If we go up to the File menu, we can create a new project by selecting the New selection, and we can select from either a new project or a new folder within the Project menu. Here we have our Open Project, and we can open any projects that we've worked on previously using this Open Project selection or this Open Recent Projects. And the Open Recent Projects will give us a selection from the most recent project and going back. And we can also set the project settings here. Here we can change the display style, and this will determine how the timeline window displays the time code for the actual composition. We can also change the color depth between 8 bits and 16 bits per channel. The default is 8, and the default for the display is 30 frames per second with a drop frame. If we were to open a project that we worked on previously, our composition window would automatically appear along with our timeline window. If we need to create a new composition, we can go up to Composition and select New Composition, and here we'll get our composition settings. Here we can select from a number of presets, and we can also name the composition. We can set our own custom widths and height, and we can also lock it to the aspect ratio of the actual setting. As you can see here, the aspect ratio changed when I changed to widescreen, and here it changes again when I go back to the NTSC. I can also change the pixel aspect ratio depending on whether or not I'm outputting to a television monitor or a widescreen. And here I can just change the way that the pixels are viewed. But for the computer, we can just leave it at square pixels. Here we have the frame rate, and the frame rate is actually at 30 frames per second, but since we have a drop frame, it's actually here at 29.97, which is the standard for video output. Here we have the resolution, and this will allow us to determine how we would want to view our actual composition. We can always change this in the actual composition window. So setting it here will just speed us up if we need to view it at half or at third or quarter. Here is our starting time code, and this will allow us to set the beginning of the actual composition for the main project. And here we can set the duration of the composition. You'll notice that the number is split up, and the way that it's split up is into frames, seconds, minutes, and hours. We also have advanced settings if we click the tab here. And here we can set all sorts of other settings for the composition. We normally won't use these too much, but if we change the shutter angle or the shutter phase, it'll create sort of different perspectives and brightnesses. And we can also change the rendering plugin to see how the composition will handle 3D. We also have these two switches for preserving frame rate and preserving the resolution when we nest compositions. And here you can see that we have our composition, and this is how it would be if we had a composition that we were working on and opened it. But since we selected a new one, there's a blank composition that we can work with. Sometimes when we open a project, we may get a file that appears to look like this sort of TV screen type image. And what this means is that After Effects can't find this file. You can see the name of the file here. And if we look in the project window, we also have the same icon with the title of the files in italics. And we also have that same icon here in the timeline window. And what we'll need to do is actually replace our footage. So we'll have to go searching for it. And we can do this by selecting our one of our missing footage and right-clicking on it, and you'll see we get this menu here. And what I'm going to go to is replace footage, and here we'll go to File. And from here I can search for my files. And you'll see that After Effects will automatically replace the files that it finds within that folder. You can see that I replaced this Untitled 1, and this Altered City 3 was also replaced even though I didn't have it selected. And so we'll have to pay attention when things like that happen. We should also get in the habit of organizing our files in order to make them more readable within the project window. As you can see, I already have a number of files here. And if I continued to add files to it, this bar would begin to get pretty long. So by putting them in folders, we're able to use the twirl down arrow in order to reach those files. So by clicking here on this little folder icon, we'll get a new folder, and we can name the folder and add our existing files to it. And if we have a file selected when we import a file, if we have a folder selected when we import a file, that file will automatically go into the folder that we have selected. And this will just allow us to work more efficiently within the actual composition. Because if we need to use certain items more than others, such as if we have a lot of stills that we'll be using, if their title is very different, like you can see here that I have Altered City and it begins with an A, and this Untitled 1 which begins with a U. If I were to bring these, I'm selecting these by holding Control. If I were to bring these back down, you can see that After Effects puts them in alphabetical order, and if we were to try and search through all of our files, it would be pretty difficult. So by putting them in folders here, we get a better idea of where we can find that file within our list in the project window. We can also save our project by going up to the File menu, and here we have a number of selections. We have Save, which will automatically just save the project to its state that it's at now. So if the project is named already and has been saved before, we can just select this and the project will be saved to its location where it's been saved to already. If we select Save As, we'll get a pop-up window and it'll allow us to select where we want to place our project and what we can name it. The same thing for the save as a copy, except it'll tell us that it's a copy of the project. Increment and save will actually save a file in the same location as if we were to just click save, but the increment and save will save the project. So as you can see here, I have project 1. If I were to increment and save, it would become project 2, and it would be saved in the same folder, but it wouldn't be the same file. So if I wanted to take increments of my work while I'm working on it, I can do this in order to, if I mess up somewhere along the line and I know I can go back to a previous iteration of the file, then I can just do that to go ahead and start from that position rather than dealing with having to figure out how to go backwards.